The battle above SCIFI-HFY reached its turning point. For hours, the raiders had thrown everything they had against the Deathworlders, and yet the humans stood unbroken. Their ships, fewer in number but united in will, had torn through wave after wave of attackers. The void was littered with wreckage, drifting shadows of ships that once seemed unstoppable. On the human flagship Resolute, Admiral Keller watched the tactical display. The raider fleet was bleeding, its lines broken, its captains desperate. He saw the weakness clear as day. His voice cut through the command deck, steady and calm. They are fractured. They cannot recover. Prepare full encirclement. We end this now. The order spread like fire. Across the fleet, human captains straightened, their crews moving with quiet urgency. The time for defense was over. The time for annihilation had come. The human carriers launched their remaining squadrons. Fighters poured into the void, darting around raider ships like angry sparks. Destroyers surged forward to flank, slipping between debris fields with practiced ease. And the battleships advanced with unstoppable momentum, their massive guns glowing brighter with every charge. The humans did not fight with haste. They moved with purpose. Each maneuver closed a gap. Each strike cut deeper into the raider formation. Slowly, the raiders realized what was happening. They were being surrounded. Commander Zorak felt it before his officers dared to say it. He stared at his screens, watching red icons and his ships vanish one after another. The humans were not pushing randomly. They were folding his fleet into a cage. "Breakout," he roared, slamming a clawed fist onto the console. "Do not let them trap us!" His captains obeyed, driving their ships in desperate thrusts. But the humans anticipated every move. A raider squadron tried to break through the left flank, only to meet a wall of human destroyers waiting in silence. Another group pushed toward the rear, but fighters and bombers swarmed them, tearing their engines apart. The trap closed tighter. From the surface of SCIFI-HFY, the people watched in awe. Their night sky was no longer filled with chaos, but with a terrible order. The human fleet moved like a net of steel, wrapping around the raiders with perfect precision. Explosions lit up the heavens, not random flashes, but the steady beat of victory. In the assembly hall, Counselor Terran stood at the great window. His voice was hushed, almost reverent. "They are not fighting a battle," he whispered. "They are delivering judgment." Behind him, the counselors were silent. No one dared argue. They could see it with their own eyes. The humans had taken control of the war itself. On the raider flagship, panic spread. Officers shouted conflicting orders, their voices rising in fear. Zorak silenced them with a growl, but even he could not hide the dread creeping into his mind. His fleet was trapped, and the humans were closing in. Then the final blow began. Admiral Keller raised his hand. "All ships," he said, his voice unshaken, "advance. Leave nothing standing." The command hit like a thunderclap. The battleships surged forward, their cannons unleashing waves of blue fire. Entire raider cruisers broke apart under the assault, their hulls splitting like paper before a storm. Carriers continued to pour out fighters, their swarms diving into the cracks of the enemy fleet. Destroyers wove between burning wrecks, hunting stragglers with precision fire. There was no mercy. The raiders tried to retreat, but every path was blocked. The humans had built a wall of iron behind them, and every attempt to break through ended in fire. Ships that turned to flee were cut down instantly, their engines torn apart before they could run. The Veeri gasped as the spectacle unfolded above. For them, war had always been messy, chaotic, full of confusion and loss. But this was something different. This was war as art. A cold, relentless storm that allowed no escape. Technician Lyra sat frozen at her console, her eyes wide. She could hardly breathe as she watched human squadrons sweep across the raider lines. She had heard the stories, but seeing it with her own eyes was different. The Deathworlders fought not as scattered warriors, but as one living machine. "This is," she whispered, unable to finish the thought. Her colleague finished it for her, voice trembling. "This is why they are feared." One by one, the raider ships fell. Dreadnoughts that once towered over battlefields burned under concentrated strikes. Cruisers tried to shield themselves, only to be cut apart from behind. Fighters scattered, lost in panic, and were hunted down without mercy. The sky became a graveyard. On the bridge of Resolute, Admiral Keller gave no triumphant shout, no boast. He only watched, his expression calm. For him, this was not glory. It was duty. Commander Zorak, meanwhile, raged on his dying flagship. His claws tore through the metal console as his officers screamed around him. Flames spread across the deck, alarms blaring. His fleet, his empire of fear, was gone. He stared at the main screen where human ships advanced with silent resolve. For the first time, Zorik understood the truth. The Deathworlders did not fight for plunder or pride. They fought to end threats, to erase them completely. His last words were a snarl of disbelief. They are not warriors. They are executioners. And then his ship exploded, swallowed in fire. Silence fell over the battlefield. The last raider wreck drifted into the void, glowing faintly as it cooled. Not a single enemy ship remained. On the ground, the Veyari cried out, some in joy, some in fear. They had been saved, but at what cost? The sight above them was terrifying. The Deathworlders had destroyed an entire fleet with such certainty that it hardly seemed real. In the assembly hall, Counselor Terran finally spoke. "It is over," he said, though his voice carried both relief and unease. Technician Lyra leaned back in her chair, her body trembling with exhaustion. Her signal had brought the Deathworlders here. They had answered. They had saved her people. And yet, as she stared at the burning sky, she could not shake the weight of what she had seen. The humans had not simply won. They had annihilated. Above HFY-Prime, the human fleet reformed in silence, their ships sliding back into perfect lines. No cheers rose across their comms. No victory songs played. For the Deathworlders, this was only one more battle in a long history of survival. But for the galaxy watching, a message was clear. When humans came to answer a call for help, they did not leave enemies behind. They left only silence. The sky above HFY-Prime was quiet at last. Where once there had been burning ships and raining fire, now only silence remained. The raider fleet was gone, reduced to drifting wrecks and shattered fragments. The stars shone again through the black void, unobstructed by the shadow of death. The Veyari people poured from their shelters. Families stepped into the open air, blinking up at the heavens. For so long they had expected to see only destruction. Instead, they saw the human fleet, calm and still, lined across the horizon like a wall of iron guardians. No celebration erupted immediately. Relief filled their hearts, yes, but so did something else. The sight of the Deathworlders' warships stirred not only gratitude but awe and fear. Inside the great assembly hall, the counselors sat in silence. The chamber, once filled with panic, now felt heavy with the weight of survival. Counselor Terran finally broke the silence. "The raiders are no more," he said slowly. "Our people live." But even as he spoke, he felt the tremor in his own voice. The destruction had been so complete, so absolute, that the memory of it would never leave them. Technician Lyra stood near the window, her eyes locked on the sky. She had been the one to send the call, the one whose trembling voice had begged for help. Now, as she gazed at the human fleet, she wondered if she had unleashed something greater than she understood. "They came for us," she whispered, "and they did not stop." A voice broke through on the comms, deep and steady. "This is Admiral Keller of the United Human Fleet," it said. "HFY-Prime, your skies are clear. The threat is ended." The message echoed across every channel, translated into every tongue. The people of HFY listened in stunned silence. Then the Admiral's voice continued. "Your call was heard. And to all who may hear this transmission across the stars, let it be known. No one harms our allies and walks away." The words carried far. The humans had opened the channel wide, broadcasting their message not just to HFY but to every listening ear in nearby space. Merchant ships, council outposts, even distant raider scouts picked up the signal. The galaxy was listening. Counselor Terran stepped forward to respond, his voice unsteady but firm. "Admiral Keller, on behalf of the HFY, we give you our deepest thanks. Without you, our people would be ash. We will never forget." On the human flagship Resolute, Keller stood before the screen. He was not a man who smiled easily, nor did he seek glory. His words were short, but they carried weight. "Survival is thanks enough. Rebuild your world. Live." And with that, the transmission ended. But the memory did not end. For weeks, the wreckage of the raider fleet drifted in orbit, a graveyard in the stars. Human salvage crews worked to clear dangerous fragments, but much of it was left as a reminder. The HFY would look up and see the broken hulls, proof of what the Deathworlders had done. Children whispered about the battle in wide-eyed wonder. Elders spoke of it with reverence and unease. The council debated endlessly. Should they draw closer to the humans or should they fear their power? Technician Lyra knew the answer in her heart. She had watched every moment of the fight, had seen the precision and unity of the Deathworlders. They were not reckless destroyers as many in the galaxy claimed. They were something else. They were a people forged by hardship, carrying both the burden and strength of survival. One evening, as the twin moons of Vayari rose, Lyra walked the streets of her city. Around her, buildings bore scars of bombardment, but life was returning. Families rebuilt homes, merchants reopened markets, children laughed again. She realized then what the humans had truly given them, not just victory but the chance to live another day. In the distance, she saw Counselor Terran speaking to a gathering crowd. His voice was firm now, no longer trembling. "We have seen the truth with our own eyes," he told them. "The Council of the Galaxy may hesitate, may fear, may leave us to perish. But the Deathworlders did not. They came when no one else would. Let their message be remembered. Those who call to them will not be left alone." The crowd murmured, their faces lit with both hope and unease. They understood the cost of what had happened. Salvation had come, but it came with a warning. Beyond Vayari, the galaxy shook. Reports of the annihilation spread like wildfire. In council chambers, ambassadors argued in hushed tones. Some were outraged. "The humans overstepped," one cried. "They destroyed an entire fleet without mercy." Others spoke in softer voices filled with unease. "And yet," one admitted, "they succeeded where we failed. The Vayari lived because of them." What message does that send? In raider strongholds, fear spread like a plague. Bands that once raided freely now whispered of the Deathworlders. Stories twisted and grew, of ships that moved like shadows, of fleets that struck like storms, of warriors who left no enemy alive. Fear, more than weapons, broke their spirits everywhere. The message was clear. Humans answered calls for help not with hesitation, but with fire. On the human flagship, Admiral Keller stood alone in his quarters. The battle was over, yet his mind was already on the next one. He knew the galaxy was watching. Some would see the humans as saviors. Others would see them as a threat. Both views were true, but Keller did not care for politics. For him, the mission was simple. If someone cried out for help, humanity would answer. And if they answered, there would be no half measures. He looked out at the stars, his voice low, meant only for himself. Let them remember. On Vayari Prime, life returned slowly, but surely. Crops were planted again, schools reopened, and families sang old songs of survival. And always when the people looked to the sky, they remembered the day the Deathworlders came. Not as conquerors, not as rulers, but as a storm that swept away their doom. Technician Lyra often walked at night staring upward. Sometimes she wondered what other species far across the stars thought when they heard the humans' message. Fear? Hope? Perhaps both. But in her heart she knew one thing with certainty. When the Vayari cried out, the Deathworlders answered. And in their answer, the galaxy itself had changed. The starship Pathfinder drifted slowly above a strange world. Its blue engines hummed against the darkness of space, while the crew inside stared at the planet below. From orbit it looked beautiful. Lush forests, glowing rivers, and mountains that pierced the sky. But the records marked this world as dangerous, a place where no other species dared to live for long. The humans had come anyway. Exploration was in their blood. Where other civilizations stayed safe in controlled zones of space, humans liked to push past the borders. Some called them reckless. Some called them brave. For the crew of Pathfinder, it was both. Inside the ship, the crew gathered around the observation deck. They were quiet, studying the surface. "It looks calm," said Pilot Harlan, narrowing his eyes at the swirling green forests. "But the reports don't lie. They say every living thing down there is a predator." The commander of the expedition, Captain Mira, folded her arms. "And not just predators. Something worse. An alien warrior lives down there. The locals of nearby colonies call her the deadliest girl alive. They say she once destroyed a fleet on her own." The crew shifted uneasily at the words. Tales of that alien warrior had spread across trade routes and stations. Some said she was more shadow than flesh, moving faster than sight. Some claimed she could crush ships with her bare hands. But not everyone was frightened. At the back of the deck, Leaning against the railing was a young human explorer named Aaron. His uniform was a little loose, his boots scuffed from too many field trips. Unlike the others, he wasn't staring at the planet with dread. He was smiling. "Deadliest alien girl alive, huh?" he said, his voice casual. "Maybe she's just lonely." The crew turned to look at him. "Lonely?" Harlan repeated. "Aaron, the stories say she destroyed whole armies." "Stories always grow bigger the more they're told," Aaron replied. "Maybe she scared off a few mercs and now everyone says she's unstoppable." Captain Mira frowned. "You treat this too lightly," Aaron shrugged. "Maybe. Or maybe everyone else treats it too seriously." Hours later, the landing craft cut through the atmosphere and touched down on the surface. The ramp lowered, and the crew stepped out into thick air that smelled of rain and iron. Giant trees towered above them, their leaves glowing faintly in the dim light. Strange calls echoed in the distance like horns and shrieks mixed together. The team carried scanners, weapons, and survival packs. Aaron carried those too, but his eyes were on everything else. He admired the glowing plants, the small darting creatures, even the shifting shadows. Where the others moved with caution, he walked with curiosity. The deeper they went, the more uneasy the crew became. Tracks crossed the ground, claw marks bigger than a man's torso. Strange bones lay scattered near the roots of trees. Something had hunted here, something powerful. Then they felt it, a presence. The forest grew silent, as if holding its breath. The air felt heavier. Aaron noticed first. He stopped, lifted his head, and scanned the cliffs that rose above them. That was when he saw her. She stood on the edge of a high rock, armor gleaming faintly in the fading light. Her figure was slender but carried a deadly weight, like a blade drawn from its sheath. Her helmet covered most of her face, but her glowing eyes were visible even from a distance. In one hand she held a weapon shaped like a spear, though it shimmered with energy rather than metal. The crew froze. No one spoke. The stories were true, she was real. Aaron, however, did something no one expected. He grinned. "Well," he called up toward the cliff, his voice echoing across the rocks. "There she is, the famous deadliest alien girl alive. Took us long enough to find you." The rest of the crew stared at him in disbelief. "Aaron, are you insane?" Harlan whispered fiercely, but Aaron kept going. "So what's the truth? Did you really wipe out fleets? Or are you just really good at hiding and scaring people off?" For a moment, the alien girl didn't move. She stared down at him, her glowing eyes sharp and unreadable. Then, with a movement faster than sight, she leapt from the cliff. The ground shook as she landed. The crew stepped back, weapons raised, but Aaron did not move. The girl stood only a few steps away now. Her armor was marked with scars of past battles. Her weapon buzzed with dangerous energy. She looked young, far younger than the legends had suggested, but her presence was terrifying. She tilted her head, studying Aaron. "You mock me," she said. Her voice was low, smooth, but carried a dangerous edge. "Do you think I am a story?" Aaron shrugged. "I think stories are always exaggerated, and I think you don't look nearly as scary as they say." A ripple of shock went through the crew. The alien girl's weapon hummed louder. She took a step forward, eyes narrowing. "Careful," Harlan hissed. But Aaron only smirked. "What? If she's really the deadliest being alive, then I'm already doomed, right?" "Might as well speak honestly." The alien girl paused. Her eyes flashed. For a moment it seemed she might strike, ending the foolish human where he stood. Instead, she lowered her weapon slightly, confusion flickering across her face. No one had ever spoken to her like this. Most trembled. Most begged. This human teased. "Strange creature," she said at last. "You do not fear me," Aaron spread his arms casually. "Fear? Sure, I'd be an idiot not to notice you could slice me in half, but fear doesn't mean I can't talk to you. Or laugh a little. Besides, everyone needs someone to laugh at their legend." The crew looked as though they might faint. The alien girl tilted her head again, her expression unreadable behind the glowing eyes. Then slowly her weapon's hum faded as she deactivated it. "You are foolish," she said, "but not like the others." She turned, her cloak of dark fabric shifting with her movement. Before anyone could stop her, she leapt again, soaring back to the cliffs. She disappeared into the shadows, leaving only silence behind. The crew exhaled in relief. "What in the void was that?" Harlan demanded, his voice trembling. "You could have gotten us all killed." Aaron chuckled. "Or maybe I just got us an introduction. Didn't you see?" She was curious. Captain Mira shook her head. Curious or not, Aaron, you've put us in danger. She might follow. She might test us. Aaron's grin widened. Good. Then maybe we'll see her again. That night, while the crew built camp among the roots of giant glowing trees, Aaron lay awake staring at the stars above. He could not stop thinking about the alien girl's eyes. Dangerous, yes, but also lonely. Somewhere in the cliffs she was watching them, watching him. And though she didn't know it yet, Aaron was certain their paths had only just begun to cross. The campfire burned low, casting orange light on the clearing. The crew of Pathfinder sat in silence, their nerves still shaking from the encounter. Some checked their scanners again and again, trying to convince themselves the alien girl had truly gone. Others sharpened blades or cleaned their gear, even though they knew such tools would be useless against her. Only Aaron seemed calm. He sat cross-legged near the fire, eating a ration bar as though nothing unusual had happened. His relaxed mood unsettled the others. "You're too calm," Harlan muttered at last. "She was right there. You saw what she could do. She jumped down from a cliff like it was nothing. If she wanted, we'd all be gone." Aaron chewed slowly, then shrugged. "If she wanted, yes. But she didn't, that means something." Captain Mira shook her head. "You treat this lightly, Aaron. I won't have recklessness put this crew in danger. Next time, hold your tongue." Aaron gave her a small salute, though his eyes still sparkled with amusement. He didn't say it out loud, but he felt sure there would be a next time. And he was right. The night was uneasy. Strange sounds echoed from the forest. Growls, screeches, heavy movements in the undergrowth. Most of the crew slept in shifts, guarding the camp. But Aaron stayed awake, sitting against a tree and gazing toward the cliffs. It wasn't long before he felt it again, that same heavy presence, the sense of being watched. He looked up and smiled. She was there. The alien girl stood among the branches, almost hidden in the shadows, her glowing eyes fixed on him. She didn't move closer. She didn't attack. She simply watched. Aaron lifted a hand in a lazy wave. "Couldn't sleep either, huh?" he whispered. The girl tilted her head as if puzzled by his words. Then with a sudden movement, she leapt down. She landed in the clearing, silent as a falling leaf. The crew stirred, startled awake, weapons raised, but Aaron jumped up and spread his arms. "Easy. She's not here to fight. Not yet, anyway." The girl's spear appeared in her hand with a flicker of light. She looked at Aaron, ignoring the others. "You mock me," she said again. "Why?" Aaron grinned. "Because everyone else treats you like a ghost or a monster. I figured someone should treat you like a person." Her glowing eyes narrowed. "Do you not value your life?" "Oh, I do," Aaron replied. "But what's the point of living if you can't laugh even when things are dangerous?" For a long moment, the alien girl stared at him. Then, with a sharp movement, she lunged forward. The crew shouted in alarm. Her spear slashed, but Aaron ducked under it, rolling back. His heart pounded, yet he still smiled. She moved with impossible speed, each strike faster than the last. Aaron dodged, stumbled, and rolled, barely keeping ahead. "You're fast," he called, breathless but laughing. "But not fast enough to hit me yet." Her eyes flashed with irritation. She struck harder, forcing him against a tree. The crew raised their weapons, but Aaron shouted, "Don't interfere!" "She's testing me." The girl's spear stopped a hair's breadth from his chest. The humming energy buzzed against his shirt. "Why do you not tremble?" she demanded. Aaron met her gaze steadily. "Because I think you don't really want to kill me." Not yet. The forest was silent. The spear trembled slightly in her grip. Then she pulled it back and stepped away. "You are reckless," she said, "but you are not weak." Aaron chuckled, though sweat dripped down his face. "I'll take that as a compliment." The girl's eyes narrowed again, but not with anger. Something else flickered there, curiosity. "I am Zara," she said at last, lowering her weapon. "And you?" "Are strange." Aaron bowed slightly as though greeting royalty. "Aaron, explorer, professional troublemaker. At your service." The crew gaped at him in disbelief. He was speaking to the most dangerous warrior they had ever heard of, as though they were trading jokes at a campfire. Zira turned away, her cloak shifting. "Do not think this makes us allies. If you stand in my path, I will destroy you." "Noted," Aaron said cheerfully. "But maybe we'll walk the same path for a while. Who knows?" She gave him one last look, then leapt back into the trees, vanishing once more. The clearing was silent again, but the crew erupted with voices. "You're mad," Harlan shouted. "Do you realize what just happened? She was inches from ending you." Aaron sat back down by the fire, his grin unfading. And yet here I am, breathing, which means she's not as heartless as people think. Captain Mira rubbed her temples, frustrated. Aaron, if you keep provoking her, she'll either kill you or drag us all into danger. Or, Aaron said, his voice calm, she'll keep being curious. Curiosity means we can talk. Talking means we might understand her. That's worth the risk, the crew muttered, unconvinced. But Aaron's words lingered in the air. The next day, the humans explored deeper into the forest. Strange beasts moved in the distance, massive creatures with armored hides and glowing fangs. The crew kept their weapons ready, but Aaron looked around with fascination. He didn't need to search for Zara. He felt her. She was near, always watching from the shadows. Sometimes he caught a flash of her glowing eyes among the trees. Sometimes he heard the faint hum of her spear. Finally, when the crew stopped to scan strange ruins half buried in vines, Zara appeared again. This time she did not leap from the cliffs. She walked into the clearing, calm but watchful. The crew froze, hands on their weapons. Aaron stepped forward. Back again? He asked lightly. Starting to enjoy our company? Zara's eyes flicked over the crew before settling on him. You should not be here. This world devours outsiders. Then maybe you'll keep us safe, Aaron said, half joking, half serious. Her spear twitched in her hand. Why would I? Aaron smiled. Because I think you don't want to be alone. Not really. The word struck something in her. Her body stiffened. For a long moment she said nothing. Then, with sudden anger, she swung her spear at him again. The duel began. Aaron dodged, ducked, and weaved, each movement clumsy compared to her perfect strikes. Yet he kept grinning, taunting her with every near miss. Too slow, he called after barely escaping a strike. Was that supposed to scare me? You almost got me that time, almost. The crew could hardly believe what they saw. Aaron wasn't winning, but he wasn't surrendering either. And somehow, with every joke, Zara's strikes grew less deadly, less certain. Finally, she stopped, breathing heavily. Her glowing eyes locked on him, filled with something other than rage. You are not like the others, she said again. Aaron straightened, brushing dirt off his shirt. And you're not like the monster people say you are. Zara stared at him. Then, unexpectedly, she let out a short sound. Half laugh, half growl. The crew stared in shock. For the first time, the deadliest alien girl alive had laughed. That night, as the humans rested in the ruins, Aaron sat apart gazing at the stars again. He could feel Zara nearby, hidden but close. The legend was real, yes. She was fast, deadly, terrifying. But beneath all that, Aaron had seen something else. A spark of loneliness, of curiosity, of someone who had never been treated as anything more than a weapon. He smiled to himself. This was only the beginning. The forest of the strange world seemed quieter after the clash. The crew of Pathfinder moved carefully through the ruins, still shaken by what they had seen. They whispered among themselves about Orion, about the alien girl, about the way she had laughed. None of them understood what was happening, but Aaron understood. Every time he thought about Zara's short laugh, he felt more certain. She was not just a weapon, not just a story. She was alive, with feelings buried under her armor, and maybe, just maybe, she wanted to be more than the legend everyone feared. That night, while the others slept, Aaron stayed awake again. He sat on a fallen column, staring at the glowing trees. He knew she was near. You going to watch all night? He asked softly. A shadow moved. Zara stepped out from behind the vines, her spear absent this time. She wore her armor still, but the deadly energy around her seemed calmer. You knew I was here, she said. Aaron smiled. I always know. You don't hide your presence very well. Her eyes narrowed faintly. Most cannot sense me. They tremble when they do. Maybe I'm different, Aaron replied. Maybe I'm too stubborn to tremble. She tilted her head, studying him. The silence stretched. Then she asked, Why do you speak to me this way? Aaron shrugged. Because you remind me of myself in a way. People tell stories about you. They think they know who you are. But they don't. They only know fear. I don't like judging anyone by fear. For a long moment, Zara said nothing. Her glowing eyes dimmed slightly as if her thoughts drifted elsewhere. Finally, she sat down across from him. The crew would not have believed it if they had seen the deadliest alien girl alive, sitting calmly across from a human, no weapon drawn. I was not always a legend, she said quietly. Once I was only a child. Aaron leaned forward. He did not interrupt. My people trained me, she continued. They feared what I could become. My strength grew quickly. Too quickly. When I was still young, they sent me into battle. I destroyed our enemies. My own kind looked at me with awe, but also with terror. They called me cursed, dangerous, alone. Her voice did not shake, but Aaron felt the weight behind it. You've been alone ever since, he said softly. She nodded once. No one dared come close. To them, I am not a person. I am only a weapon, a storm they cannot control. Aaron's chest tightened. He saw her differently now, not as a terrifying figure, but as someone who had carried isolation all her life. Maybe that's why you laughed, he said with a small smile. Because for once someone didn't treat you like a weapon. Zara stared at him for a long moment. Then unexpectedly, she looked away. Perhaps. The next days passed strangely. The humans continued their survey of the ruins, scanning old machines and structures hidden under vines. To their surprise, Zara often appeared nearby. She did not attack. She did not threaten. Instead, she moved silently through the forest, watching, listening. At first, the crew avoided her, keeping weapons ready. But slowly, they realized she did not mean harm. She stayed close mostly to Aaron, who spoke to her whenever she came. One morning, Aaron was adjusting a scanner when he felt her presence. Without looking up, he said, "You're getting predictable. I know you're there." Zara stepped out of the shadows. "And yet you do not run. Why would I? If you wanted me gone, you'd have done it long ago." Her eyes flickered. She moved closer, watching his hands as he worked on the scanner. "What is this?" she asked. "A tool," Aaron said. "It helps us read signals, study energy, maybe even understand what these ruins were used for." "Knowledge," Zara said. "Exactly." Aaron glanced at her. "You could learn it too if you want." Her brows lowered slightly. "Why would you share with me?" "Why not?" Aaron replied. "Knowledge is better shared. Besides, it might give you something new to think about, better than just hunting all the time." She was quiet, but she did not walk away. Instead, she crouched beside him, watching closely as he explained. The crew stared from a distance, whispering in disbelief. They had never seen anyone stand so close to her and live. Yet Orion acted as though it were the most natural thing in the world. Over the following days, a strange rhythm formed. Aaron would speak to Zara whenever she appeared. Sometimes he teased her, calling her Legendary Girl or Shadow Queen, which always earned him a glare. Sometimes he explained human tools, or told stories of Earth, its oceans, its mountains, its cities filled with people. Zara listened silently most of the time, but little by little, she began to respond. When Aaron joked about her armor being overly dramatic, she answered, "It is not for drama. It is for war." When he described human laughter, she asked, "Why does it feel lighter than words?" When he told her about music, she tilted her head and whispered, "I have never heard such a thing." Aaron promised he would play her some songs when they returned to the ship. She did not admit it, but the thought seemed to interest her. One afternoon, while the crew was mapping the ruins, Aaron and Zara walked along a ridge overlooking the forest. For the first time, she removed her helmet. Her face was sharp, with high cheekbones and faint markings across her skin that glowed faintly in the dim light. Her eyes still shone like embers, but without the visor, Aaron could see something softer behind them. "You took off your mask," Aaron said gently. "I wanted to see without filters," she replied. "And to let you see me." Aaron smiled. "You're not what I expected, but that's a good thing." She looked at him strangely, as though she wasn't sure whether to be offended or pleased. "You are strange," she muttered. "I've heard that before." Aaron replied with a grin, but their growing bond did not erase the danger of the world. One night, the crew was attacked by a beast unlike anything they had seen, a hulking creature with armored plates and glowing fangs. It burst into the camp, scattering supplies and roaring loud enough to shake the trees. The humans fired their weapons, but the creature barely slowed. Then Zara appeared. Her spear hummed with deadly light as she charged, striking with speed and power that stunned the crew. She moved like a storm, cutting into the beast's armored hide. But even she struggled. The creature was massive, relentless. Aaron grabbed a flare gun and fired it at the beast's eye. The flash blinded it for a moment, giving Zara the chance to leap high and drive her spear deep into its neck. The beast let out one final roar before collapsing with a thunderous crash. The crew stared, stunned. Zara stood over the fallen creature, her chest rising and falling with heavy breaths. Then she turned to Aaron. "You distracted it," she said. He shrugged. "Teamwork." Her glowing eyes softened faintly. She gave a short nod. "Yes, teamwork." After the battle, as the crew repaired the camp, Zara sat apart from them. Aaron joined her, sitting quietly beside her. "You didn't have to fight for us," he said. She looked at him. "But I did." "Why?" Zara's gaze drifted toward the stars. "Because, for the first time, I did not want to be alone." Aaron smiled gently. "Then don't be." For a long moment she was silent. Then softly she whispered, "Perhaps." That night, as the fire flickered, Zara stayed close to the camp instead of vanishing into the forest. She sat near Aaron, silent but present. The crew still watched her with unease, but Aaron felt only calm. The deadliest alien girl alive had begun to change. And deep inside, Aaron knew that he had begun to change too.